Right, we're on. Oh, good to see everybody today. It's kind of funny. Blaine mentioned something that he heard from Luke Wilson, because it's actually something that Luke Wilson said that got me thinking about this message that I prepared for today. And it was down in Lima, which was back a few months ago. We went down there and we heard a lot of good preaching. A lot of good things came out of that weekend. I'm glad we went. One thing Luke said in his message, he said, you know, people come to the knowledge of Christ, and they come and they want to learn of Him and then become and be baptized. They accept the terms of pardon and all that. So they know the basics. They have a basic understanding. They know Jesus is the Son of God. They need a Savior. They're lost. You know. He says, but then after that, they spend the rest of their lives really understanding what happened in the waters of baptism and what really took place. And I thought, man, that is so true. You know, that hits it right on the head. That's exactly what happens. But then it got me thinking, then, you know, how many people just get lost along the way before they even get their feet under them? They come from different backgrounds. They may not have any religious background at all. They may come from a doctrine of traditions and ritualistic stuff, you know, and you got to learn the secret handshakes and all this stuff, and that's all it is. So that's all they know. They have no idea how far this goes and how deep it goes and just how much it can really change their life. And Satan's right there, you know, just to take them away, because he don't want them to know. He knows, and he don't want anybody to know. So this morning I'm going to start out, and we're going to look at Romans chapter 7. And I'm going to read here in verse 15, Apostle Paul speaking here. He says, for what I am doing I do not understand, and for what I will to do, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells, for to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good I do not find. Now he's talking here before he was baptized, as the unrejuvenated man, as we call it. You keep reading here in verse 24, he says, O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? And then in the first part of chapter 8, he says, now there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. Okay, so what he's doing here, he's identifying the dysfunctional side of man. And then he's also showing us where the solution is. It's in the Lord. It's in Jesus Christ, okay? But before we get to that, let's look at this dysfunctional side of man, okay? The things I want to do, I'm not doing. The things I don't want to do, I keep doing. It's driving me nuts. I don't understand it. What's going on? See, a lot of times people get caught up in the surface problems. They got all this stuff in their face all the time, so they think that's the problem. But you got to go deeper than that. It's what lies underneath the surface is where the rubber really does meet the road, okay? So in this dysfunctional type of thinking that he's bringing out here, people need to understand, and it's my belief, that this is a deep-seated fear of man. It's not on the surface, but it's deep down inside, that we don't know what we're doing, and we can't trust our own thoughts on the carnal-minded side of things, okay? Remember, we're talking before Christ here. And I believe that it is a deep-seated fear of all mankind, men and women. And you have to come to that place to where you're either going to admit that and accept that there are spiritual things going on in this world that are above you, more powerful than you, or you're going to deny it and dig your feet in and take on the world and say, no, I ain't buying that stuff. I got this. I'm going to do it. You know, what are you going to choose? It makes a big difference. All right? But think about the people that refuse God. They say, no, they ain't buying it. What are they left with then? Because reality doesn't change. The spiritual forces are still at work in this world. They don't get out of nothing. And they've just taken away the one thing that was going to help them. So now they have nothing to rely on except themselves and except their thoughts, which are dysfunctional. So they dig in. They can't come to that point to say, I don't know what I'm doing, because the only identity that they have is the one that they have made for themselves based on their own worldly perceptions and what the world says is okay, and they can't come to that point to say, I don't know, because it would destroy them. They cannot do it. So what do we see all the time? At your workplace, walking down the street, people that just, they're going to blame anything and everything under the sun except themselves. People just get out of my way. People just do what I tell them to do. You know, man, quit trying to hold me back, and everything would be fine. It drives you nuts, doesn't it? It drives me nuts. But we got to have compassion on the people, because like I just said, they're that way because they don't have any other choice. They refuse God. They don't have any other choice. That's all they got, and they're going to hold on to it to the bitter end. Now, what about the people that do believe in God, and that they want to find Him, and they want to seek His face, and they want to understand? You know, those new converts, they come out, they're a new creature, vessels clean, indwelling presence of the Holy Spirit. Well, like we've talked before, God don't just zap us. We still have this dysfunctional mind, this carnal mind that's now got to come out. That's where the battle starts. That's where it's at. That's where things start happening. I remember in my lifetime, a few years, you know, after I was baptized, I wanted to do good. I really did. But I was terrible at it. Just terrible. Driving me nuts. But reality doesn't change. Things don't stop moving. And I was coming to a point in my life where things were happening, and I had to make serious decisions that were going to affect the rest of my life, my future, my kids' future, all these things. And I remember thinking that, well, you know, it just stopped me, I guess, because I came to the point, and I told myself, because I talk to myself quite often, actually, and I said, you know, it doesn't matter how much you think about it. It doesn't matter. Because if there's a right answer and a wrong answer, you're going to pick the wrong one every time, because that's just what you do. So we might as well not even worry about it, because you're going to pick the wrong answer. And I stopped and I thought, man, why is that? And I got mad. And I got really mad. I said, I'm tired of this. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to fail. I want to succeed. What is going on? See, I wasn't fighting correctly. Satan knew who I was. He knew what I was trying to do, and he would flatten me every time. And I would get so beaten down and feel like such a failure that I'd all but almost given up. And I was just trying as hard as I could. But we don't beat Satan by just trying harder, do we? It wasn't working. So now looking back at that time, I can see now the Lord's hand in all of that, because that's exactly where He needed me to be. That's what He needed me to see. Because then I really started getting serious about understanding what I was reading in the Scriptures and really starting to pull the life out of what Jesus tells us. And then even going and reading, you know, other books that partner with the Scriptures, use the biblical principles and apply them in a more contemporary way or scientific way with the, you know, brain functions and all this other stuff. So it was really starting to make sense. I was gaining knowledge, and I was starting to fight correctly, because I knew at that time that I needed different thoughts. My thoughts is what was sabotaging me. It was the traitor within, that poser, that person that doesn't know what they're doing but doesn't want to get out of the way, and they have to be killed. They got to be knocked out of the way by force, by a force stronger than them, the only force, God. That's what I had to do. That's what I had to come to. And the grace and mercy of the Lord is more than we can comprehend, because, you know, it saved my life. But it is the fear of man. They don't want to go there. They don't want to accept that kind of stuff. But if they will face that lie of Satan that you have to be fearful of this, you have to maintain that you know what you're doing, they'll face it. And it is the beginning of understanding and learning and healing and overcoming. Proverbs 14:12 tells us, there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end is death. It says, if you want to listen to that carnal-minded voice, then good for you. Your end will be death. But it is the beginning of wisdom to acknowledge the Lord. Also in Proverbs 1:7, we can go ahead and turn there. Might as well just read it right out of the page. Well, we hit on this on Wednesday night a little bit, this idea, the fear of the Lord. In verse 7, in chapter 1, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord, this is a reverent fear. This is a respectful fear. This is the acknowledgement that there are spiritual things going on in this world that are stronger and greater and mightier than me, and I need the Lord's help to overcome it and be successful in life. Okay, it's a mirage. It's not real, this fear that you have to know what you're doing. To come to the Lord and acknowledge Him and give Him the respect that He is due is the beginning of knowledge and the overcoming and the changes in your life. So that new convert comes and he's brought up out of the water. And like I said, Satan sees that and he looks at them and he knows the dysfunctional mind they have because, he helped them get that way through this world we live in, the interactions. And he says, where do you think you're going? Okay. So I'm reminded of the Ben Alexander videos we watched down here one night. I think it was back in the spring. If anybody doesn't know who Ben Alexander is, he's a former spiritualist turned Christian. Okay, this guy he's the real deal. It's not no Hollywood stuff. It's true. The guy's got credibility. A lot of people in the Christian world know who he is, seen his stuff. But he does a really good job blowing the top off the spiritual stuff, these Ouija boards and all this stuff people get into, these seances, go talk to your dead relatives. He says, no. He goes, you're not talking to your dead relatives, you're talking to demons. This is demonic. And the Lord even says, and you stay away from that stuff, and for good reason. You don't know the evil you're messing with. But he brings out in that video his friend, Jeff Miller, who was a medium. He would go into a trance-like state, and the demons would possess his body and get the ectoplasmic forms going and all this. And sometimes they'd even write letters. So, the guy's out, and his hand's going like this, and it's the demon writing letters. And then when he come out, he'd be able to see them. And what Ben said was that he went and he tried to convert his friend Jeff. He preached Christ to him, and he was even actually baptized, he said. But then later, after this Jeff Miller died, they found a journal that he kept. And Ben said, I don't think his baptism was legit. I don't think he was heartfelt and sincere in it. Because in the journal they found where he wrote that he was still doing these seances and doing these things. And they found a letter that he wrote in one of these trance states. So the demon, wrote this letter to him so he'd see it when he came out. And it said, do you really think that after we've used you the way we want, any way we want, all these years, that we would just let you go? Man, if that don't make the hair on the back of your neck stand right up, scary stuff. But let that be a lesson to all of us. Satan ain't just going to roll over, just go walking down the street, kicking rocks, darn it, lost another one. No, he's going to put you in his sights, say, where do you think you're going? Man, so many times, especially lately it seems, last few months, I get people coming up to me and they're telling me that they're struggling and they can't hardly keep it together. They don't know how much longer this is going to last. It's just one trial after another. They're losing hope. They're beaten down. And from the bottom of my heart, all I can do is tell those people is to hang on and dig deeper. There's something more going on. If there are surface problems, there's something going on underneath that needs to be addressed. Promise you it's there. I promise. Let me show you something. In the book of John, chapter 8, in verse 32, we'll start. Jesus speaking, John 8:32. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Jump down to 34. And Jesus answered them, most assuredly I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin, and a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. All right? If the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed. If you don't feel free in your life right now, then that means that there is something still in there that's got to come out of that house. The slave does not abide in the house forever, but the Son abides forever. And if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. So don't give up hope. Don't let Satan win that battle. You can be free. You can feel free. You can get there. It's tough, but it's doable. It's absolutely doable. Let me play this out a little bit. I want to make sure everybody understands kind of what I'm saying in all this. So bear with me 1 second. This is kind of something I just came up with. It's not scriptural, but I believe that it is biblically based. You'll get it. New convert comes out the water. Satan, he sees him. Where are you going? He says, I've spent your entire life training your mind to think the way I want you to think, to keep you away from the Word of God and the hope of the gospel, through society, through popular opinion, through all these different ways. Satan's God of this world. We live in this world. We can't get away from it. We're affected by it. We have to live in it. So our carnal side of our minds is drawn to those things that are generally evil in nature. So Satan is telling us, he's saying to us, I've trained your mind to think the way I want you to think, to keep you away from the gospel. What do you think you're doing? Where do you think you're going? But then Jesus says, because now you're baptized, now you have His Spirit in you. So Jesus says, yes, but now they have the right and the ability to live in righteousness. And if they'll do it, if they'll choose it, I will ensure their victory over you. Now let me take a minute and explain why I worded that the way I did. When I said that they now have the right, I want to explain that. Now, we are saved by grace through faith, no doubt about it, Ephesians 2:8. It is the gift of God. But when we are baptized, now we belong to God. So now we are His. So now He is the only one that has the right to define us, give us our identity, or tell us who we are. Not the world, not Satan, not our family or friends or anybody else. God defines who we are. It is our birthright through baptism. And I'm not just talking about the cool Jesus t-shirts that you get on the internet. That stuff's great. But what I'm talking about is in your core, in your heart of hearts. What is your name? Who are you? Who is your Father? Your name is Christian. Christ in me. Conqueror. Warrior. Overcomer. Child of God. Sons and daughters. Joint heirs with Christ. Your Father is the living God. It is more than just getting to go to heaven. And it starts today, that birthright, to where you can tell Satan, no more am I going to listen to your lies. You're not going to tell me nothing. I belong to God. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 7. He says, hey, look, the person dies, the part of them that's dust goes back to the ground, to the dust. And the spirit goes back to God from whence it came. The spirit belongs to God. Every spirit that animates a body on this earth came from God. It belongs to God. Now, it's either going to go back and it's going to depart from me, cursed, workers of iniquity, into hell, or it's going to be, well done, good and faithful servant, come on in. But the Spirit's going to go back to God. The Spirit is God's, so He gets to say what it is. If it's a vessel for honor or for dishonor. Satan wants to get in our face and beat us down to keep our mindsets low so we won't achieve. But he don't have the right. He don't have the right to tell us nothing because it ain't his. We don't belong to him. We belong to God. We need to keep that in mind. So Satan says then, well, I'll take the things that I've implanted in their minds in case they ever pulled a stunt like this, and I'm going to pull it right out of them through my evil world with their interaction. I'm going to pull it right out of them, and I'm going to show them that they haven't changed a bit, and they haven't come to nothing. And Jesus says, yeah, and I'm going to use those same things to show them where their problems are and where you're working at in their life. And then I'm going to help them to overcome it and be free of your chains and your darkness and the dysfunction in their life. We're going to get it out through that same thing, the same experiences that we go through in life. Satan's trying to put it in our face. See, you're still a failure. You're still miserable. You're still nothing. And Jesus is saying, that's the problem right there. Let's get that right on out of here. But what voice are we listening to? That's the key. What voice are we listening to? Now, before I move on from that, I want to take a second. When I said about, Jesus is going to use the things that are brought out of us through this world and through what Satan is trying to do to destroy us, look at James chapter 1. Because I don't want there to be any mistakes or confusion here. God is not the tempter. Satan is. That's his department. In verse 13 says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. All right? So Satan's the one who's attacking us. But the outcome can work to good if we allow it through the power of Christ. God can take the outcomes and make them good, even though the trials we go through, we're still going to have to go through them. But, one more, turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and look at what he says here also, along with what we just read. It says also here, in verse 13, no temptation has overtaken you except such as common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape that you may be able to bear it. We have to believe that. We have to believe that he's sincere in that, because when you're going through it, it's dark as dark can be, and it's never ending. Woe is me. Just shut my head in the door, please. But we got to believe that you just got to dig down, and you just got to get tough, and you just got to get through it, because the Lord's not going to let you take on more than what you can handle. And what is it that we can't handle if we have the Spirit of Christ in us that overcame the world? He overcame the world. We live in the world. So what is it of the world that we can't overcome? Nothing. Ain't nothing we can't overcome. Back this way. Hebrews 2. I like this one. Verse 14. Inasmuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, he, capitalized, Jesus, himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. When the Son sets you free, you're going to be free indeed. And if you're not free, then keep going. Dig deeper. It's there. I promise it's there. And you will be made free. I'm going to turn on back to Genesis now. I want to look at Adam and Eve's sin. This is chapter 3. I don't know if I just said that. I probably did. This is after the serpent comes, tempts them. She eats of the apple of the tree, the knowledge of good and evil, gives to her husband, Adam. He eats. So now sin has entered the world. It's entered the man. Okay, verse 7. It says, then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. Now what do we see here? What happened, okay? They sinned against God. Sin entered them. And what was the first thing that happened? What was the first attack? Boom, you're ugly. You're shameful. We relate nakedness to shamefulness, okay? You're shameful. You're no good. You cover yourselves. Cover yourselves with what? With things of the earth, okay? It's a physical example, but let's apply it to 2017 right here today. What do people do when they have that vulnerability, that feeling of shame or inadequacy? They cover themselves with things of the world. They try to fill those gaps with all this stuff. You don't need none of it. Before this happened, they didn't have any problem walking around the garden the way God made them. They had no problem. It wasn't until after that, and that's the first thing Satan did to attack them. He attacked them at their core, at their identity. You're ugly. You're bad. Cover yourselves. Then what? Verse 8. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. They hid themselves. They separated from God. They heard him coming. Don't come any closer, Lord. We're indecent. Don't come any closer. Don't look at us. They went and hid. Before God even got the chance to throw them out of the garden, they removed themselves. They went and hid from him. So what do we do now today in 2017? We're struggling, we're new converts. And, I keep picking on the new converts, but, let me clarify. This can happen to anybody, okay? If you start to get bored with your spirituality, or you're getting older along in years and just really don't care anymore, you start getting lax. Satan's not lax. He's going to come back when you least expect it, and he's going to hit you. Now, this can happen at any time. Well, they went and they hid themselves before he could even throw them out. They separated from him. So here in 2017, we see people doing the same thing. This is the trap that I fell into. Satan says, oh, you made a mistake again. See, you don't have any power. No, you didn't come to nothing. You can't do it. You can't do nothing. Imagine that as bricks. Every time he gives us those negative thoughts and we agree with him, and we just put them up as a wall. Yeah, you're right. I did make a mistake again. Nah, I still can't do it. And you're building that wall in between you and the Lord. You're keeping that light out. So then what happens then? You're trapped inside that wall apart from the one thing that you need to be whole and to be complete and to be an overcomer. You've just trapped on the other side of the wall, and now you're inside in darkness, standing next to Satan. Says, good, now I'm going to kill you. That's what happens. That's the reality. It all goes on in our mind, but that is what happens. That is what's going on. So when he's handing you those bricks to put that wall up, we need to stop and take a second and throw them right back in his face and say, you don't get to tell me nothing. I belong to God. He defines who I am. He gives me my identity. He gives me my name. Gives me my worth, my value. And what was that? A sacrifice of an extension of his own self. The blood and agony of his son. That was your value. That's how much you're worth. Doesn't matter what the world says. They're irrelevant. God's the only one that matters. His opinion is the one that matters. So what's God looking for? What does it all mean then? Well, look at John. We'll go back to the book of John. I like this. Chapter 6, verse 67. Now Jesus said some things that offended some people by eating his flesh, drinking his blood, and they were walking with him no more. Down 67, Jesus said to the 12, well, do you also want to go away? Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. All right? They didn't separate. They weren't just going to go and hide in the bushes in the garden like Adam and Eve did. They were going to stand right there with them and say, where else are we going to go? You have the words of eternal life. We don't understand it. Sounds kind of creepy, but we're going to stick it out, and we're going to figure this out. Lord wants people that are going to stick with Him to the bitter end, right on through it all, with no option of any place else to go, right out of their mind. With Adam and Eve, they ate off a tree, and they were cut right into their identities, right to their cores. They separated from God. All this because they ate an apple? God must really hate apples. See, that's surface. That's the surface problems. What really happened? They listened to the voice of Satan instead of God's. They listened to the voice of Satan instead of God's, and it sent them into a tailspin. Destroyed them from the inside out. We do the same thing. When we listen to Satan's voice instead of God's, we end up doing the same thing. Slowly, and that wall builds, and he destroys us. I'm going to save that for a different time. Now, when I said, you're struggling, just hang in there and keep digging deeper, because whatever's going on at the surface, that means there's something more going on underneath. And then the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. I want you to understand what that means. There was a time in my life when I was not the same person. I was a poser. I was this guy with these people and this guy with these people, and it drove me nuts. It was a mess. It was dysfunction. But now, I can honestly say that I am the same guy behind closed doors as I am today. And that is freedom. That is freedom. And it's power. And it's open to everyone. Anybody can have it through the knowledge of the Scriptures. And that's where you get it. Not by just trying harder. Understanding more. Dad told me that I don't know how many times. And I'm pushing on the wall. Yeah, I know, Dad. I hear you. I hear you. And I'm still doing it because I didn't fully understand. Even when we think we understand, we don't. Because it's deeper. All this stuff, I said it before, these spiritual things, this is all about the deepness of life. It's not surface. The world is surface. This is all deep. If we can't go deep, if we can't stop and look at these scriptures and take every piece out of every verse that we can and see the life that is written from the Father to us, then we're missing out. We're not getting all that we can get, because these are the words of life. I don't read to beat any speed records or just to say that I went through it. I want to pick everything I can out of it and understand it, because it's life and it benefits my life, and I want it. And everybody else needs to want it. All right. Son will set you free. I'll close it up here. I'm reminded of an old Indian proverb. I really like it. I don't even remember where I heard it, but it hits the mark really good. It's the old warrior talking to his grandson, the young warrior, and he says, 2 wolves live inside the heart of every warrior, and they fight to control you. One is good, and one is evil. And he pauses. And the young man says, well, which one wins? And the old warrior looks him right in the eye, and he says, the one that you feed. The one that you feed. The voice that you listen to. That's the one that's going to win over you. Whether it be God or Satan. Same experiences we go through in life. 2 voices saying 2 different things. What's it going to be? Are we going to continue to struggle and go through the trials just to get beat up again? Or are we going to take on the lesson that we need to learn. Uproot what's going on underneath the surface and get it out. And be set free. One of the verses I really like, Mom had it right on the wall, right by where I got cereal, so I saw it every day. It's Joshua 24:15. Choose this day who you will serve. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Going to serve the Lord. Thank you for your attention this morning.